let's be honest. I want to this entire Brandon Miller segment. I just want to have a caveat to this, in that the Charlotte Hornets stink. They are not a good basketball team. However, we've spent a lot of time on Chet. We've spent a lot of time on Wemby. We've spent some time on Jaime Jaquez Jr. I believe, early in the season, especially, we talked about Thompson from Detroit. We need to spend some time on Brandon Miller right now because he's playing unbelievable. I have a ton of stuff here. I've watched a ton of film recently. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. I want to start with you, though. What are your observations, takeaways right now from Brandon Miller's play as of late?
Yeah, it's been tremendous, and you're right. There's no real reason to watch Charlotte. He's the reason that you want to watch Charlotte play.
He is the reason. Thank you.
Yes, he's the reason. There's no other reason, right? So, and here's what I'm seeing from him, and I really liked him coming out. And early on, there were times he looked a little bit like physically overmatched, just from a sheer strength standpoint, and getting to where he wanted to go and maintaining balance on drives and it was part of it, his physical build. Part of it was also just being young and new to him and coming into the league, and it's just a lot for guys. So and I knew he was a good pick, but I just didn't know ultimately how great. What is his ceiling? Here's what I'm seeing out of him lately. Now, I thought that, and I do like sometimes comparisons to current players when guys are coming out. I think for point of reference for people that aren't aware of who the guy is, they haven't seen him that much. If you can give a little bit of a description of he's kind of like this at the ultimate ceiling. If everything pops, he could be this. This reminds me of, and I said Paul George at the time coming out. Now, Paul George has a much more accomplished handle, much more polished handle, right? And that definitely is the main difference between the two of them. Where I saw some of the similarities in Brandon Miller coming out, I'm really starting to see them now. And then there's another guy I'm also starting to see a comparison to it, particularly the way he operates on ball screen, is Jason Tatum. Now, Tatum also, he wasn't like this when he came in the league, but Tatum's handle now is elite level where he can go back and forth multiple times with the ball and get you off balance and then pick a direction and go, or go, counter, different move, go the other direction. That's not quite Brandon Miller yet with the handle. Let's be honest about it. But where he is excelling, his triple threat pivot work, it reminds me so much of Tatum, where the ball screen comes and he's not going to already be pounding it. He's holding the ball on his hip as the ball screen comes. And now he's going into his jab step stuff, JJ. And here I am sitting in the chair doing this in my office. This is how into this stuff I get. But he's so good with the ball, with his foot, with his pivot, with his rocker stuff to get you sort of off balance and make the defender of the screener not know where he's going. And then he's so good at then that first step, either direction, going and exploding. So his ability now to operate out of that, and he's averaging 25 points a game this month. This is where he's going with his scoring right now. And the main two areas of improvement are his ability to create off the ball screen to a pull-up three or to get into the lane. He's starting to develop these one-footed floaters, 8, 10, 12 feet. These running shots are going in at a high rate. And then the other incremental improvement he's shown here lately is, and I saw a number on him earlier in the year, he was at 54% finishing inside of 5 feet on all field goal attempts, which is a low number for a wing with size. By the time you get in there, they should be shooting a higher rate than that. That's up now in the low 60s over the last whatever many games, 15 games. So that's a pretty significant jump, 54 to 62% in that period of time. So that tells you also he's more comfortable now of how to manipulate the ball around guys, to absorb contact a little bit better, make the shot, not rush it as he gets in there. So the patience and how he's seeing the floor at the NBA level, it's all coming together for him. But he's a very talented offensive player. And the best news about it for Charlotte, you didn't have much of a choice at 2 because you knew who was going to 1. And for this guy to be basically fall in your lap as the second pick, they made the right pick. This guy is legit, man. And the way he has grown throughout the year has been the most impressive thing because it's been very rapid. And he's going to finish this thing, man, over these last 25, 30 games on just a heater. He's going to average probably 23 to 25 points a game over a 30-game stretch to finish the year. It's an enormous sample size, even on a bad team.
You brought up February. Since January 18th, 14 games, 49% from the field, 39% from three on almost 8 attempts, 22 a game, 5 rebounds, 2.5 assists. I'm going to talk about the defensive stuff in a second. In that 14-game stretch, he's got 10 20-point games. You used the Tatum comp, which I like. It is funny that Paul George, right? He said that Paul George, coming out, he said, Paul George is my GOAT. And there's certainly some Paul George comp there. The other guy that in watching film, the other guy I see a little bit of is Brandon Ingram. And the reason I say Brandon Ingram is because out of that pick and roll, his ability with his positional size to just get to the mid-range, going to his right, going to his left, it doesn't really matter, and just kind of shooting over defenders. And he's got a little bit of that, especially going right. He's got a little bit of that Brandon Ingram tilt. Now he's got a lower release point. Yeah, exactly. He's got a lower release point than BI, but he has that tilt where he can kind of fall away going to his right and just shoot right over the top. The pick and roll stuff lately has been incredible. I talked about the mid-range. You brought up the finishing, and I'm glad you did because he's had a number of drives. I mean, he had 2 against Anthony Davis in that Lakers game where he's finishing on the other side of the rim with his offhand. So you have that stuff. Shooting threes off the dribble is, to me, the thing that unlocks every elite offensive player on the perimeter. That is the thing. And he had a step back 3 against the Lakers that just totally shook Austin Reeves that he made. There was a play from the Lakers game that was my favorite play I've seen. So he's in a strong side pick and roll in the corner, and they run the pick and roll towards the middle. He tags. Austin Reeves catches the ball on the wing. He closes out. They go to try to post. Austin Reeves, passes him, tries to pass Anthony Davis the ball. He steals the ball and he goes down and bangs on somebody. He goes down and dunks. And it's like, if we're gonna comp Paul George, if we're gonna comp Tatum, right, you've got to be disruptive on the defensive end. And that to me I've seen a lot of that recently. He had a chase down block that was just fucking insane. And it's the reason I want to bring up this. So he gets the chase down block, goes down, makes a spot up 3. They're running a ton of stuff for him right now for catch and shoot threes. So they'll come out of a timeout and they'll run a pick the picker for him to get a catch and shoot 3. His versatility offensively as a rookie is super impressive. Here's the most important thing to me with Brandon Miller, and this is why I brought up the chase down block. There was a viral thing the other day where he scores a layup. The other team takes the ball out. They go down. They score a layup. He's the first guy back. He started at the baseline. He's screaming at his teammates, get the fuck back. Get the fuck back. I talked to some people in the Hornets organization. It's like, I can see this guy. I can see what I see on the court. What's this guy like? Here's some words thrown around. Smart, great IQ, competitor, coachable, great teammate, detail-oriented as a rookie. Come on, man. Buy this guy's stock. Buy this guy's stock. Because physically he has it. Skill-wise he has it. You have 2 of the 3 boxes checked. If you've got it up here, if you've got it in the mindset, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be an all-star, all-NBA type player for years.
Agreed.
That's how good Brandon Miller can be.
I totally agree. Seems like we're in lockstep with what we're seeing out of him. And it's now he's a guy that, like I said, he's the only reason to watch. So I'm going to watch the condensed version and just watch his possessions. There's no other reason to watch Charlotte. I got a question for you.
Second Spectrum. It's the best thing ever.
So let's finish this up on Brandon Miller with this then, because I think this is important. You got Victor, you got Chet, Brandon Miller. You got 3 guys. I'm going to ask you, do you consider the Rookie of the Year award to be mostly just flat out stat based and what the guy's ultimate, based on what you're seeing, what this guy's ultimate ceiling really is? And so meaning who's really going to be ultimately the overall better player when this is all said and done, and they're putting up numbers. How much do you play into a competitive environment? Because Chet Holmgren's on a team that's going to win more games than San Antonio and Charlotte combined. And he's been starting from the beginning. He also, and Victor too, all three of these guys, which is great, you said it, they're all disruptive defensively, right? They're all major impact players on that end of the floor. But Chet is on a team that's been near the top of the West the entire season and will probably stay there. And so his numbers might not be as good by the time, but certainly not as good as Victor's right now, but close. I mean, and his shooting splits are incredible, Holmgren's. But Brandon Miller's numbers are continuing to climb up. So by the time this is all said and done, he's probably going to end up with better, just raw scoring numbers than Chet. How much do you factor in when you're looking at this award? Because it's mostly been Victor and Chet. That's all we've talked about for Rookie of the Year. Obviously, Brandon Miller needs some consideration here. I'm just curious, you personally, how do you factor in the weight of the competitive environment that they're in every night and their role in that team? Guys starting averaging 34, 35 minutes a game on a team that good in Oklahoma City. How much weight does that carry relative to what Wembanyama and Miller are getting, which is every night is like, it's not about winning at all. It's about their development only, really. That's what the season is left on. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that, because I think Miller's now in the conversation, but ultimately, how do you parse those choices?
Yeah, we spent some time on this with the Dunker Spot guys maybe 6 weeks ago. And look, I said at the time, I thought Chet Holmgren was the MVP. And maybe I was a little flippant about Victor Wembanyama's Rookie of the Year chances. And for Spurs fans, I apologize for that. I think those two guys are neck and neck right now, I guess. Look, to your point about factoring in, Tim, Chet Holmgren right now is an anomaly. He was the second pick, didn't play, and now is on a West leading team that, because they've developed their guys internally, they drafted really well, late in the lottery to get Jalen Williams, who's a fucking star, had a monster game last night. So I think it's weird, because normally you don't factor in competitive environment with rookies, right? Because none of them have the counting. Normally a rookie that goes to a competitive environment is the 24th pick, the 28th pick, whatever it may be. He's the sixth guy, the seventh guy, the eighth team. Right, exactly. And maybe he has, 9 points, 5 assists, whatever. So you're not really factoring in that person because the counting stats just aren't there, right?
Yeah.
Even going back to last year, Jalen Williams had an insane stretch post All-Star break towards the end of the regular season. I said, he deserves some consideration. I'm not saying he's the Rookie of the Year. I ultimately voted for Paolo Banchero because of the role that he had to have as a rookie, being, along with Franz Wagner, one of the two primary guys in terms of shot creation and the offense running through them. As it relates to this year, I think you're right. I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that Brandon Miller continues this stretch of games and continues this stretch of play and ends up with maybe better, scoring numbers than Chet, whatever it may be. If I had to say right now, I think what Vic has done since he moved to center and since they started playing him more with Trey Jones, but since he moved to center, most importantly, and they got Zach Collins coming off the bench and he's got more space, the production, efficient, all that stuff's gone up. You also have to factor in, I think, with Vic to some degree, the wow factor. Yeah. Just the fucking plays he's made. Yeah. You're like, all right, I would give probably the slight edge to Vic right now. Now, we have 30 fucking games. I know. Yeah. I'm going to do the same thing I did last year. When was the last day of the regular season? April 10th? Okay. My vote's due April 11th. Whatever the last day is. I'm voting on the last day. I'm factoring it all for all this stuff. There's too much on the line. Yeah. And I think it's important as we go down the stretch to have these check-ins with Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, MVP, whatever. I like doing this later in the season. There's so much just random noise 5, 10, 20 games into the season. To me, it's not worth doing it. But right now, these three guys have been the three best rookies. Jaquez Jr., who I said was the third best rookie for a couple times early in the season, had the groin injury, hasn't been the same player since he got back. He's obviously in the top 5 of the rookies as well. But these three guys, I think, have really separated themselves in this rookie class. And last thing I want to say, Tim, I was just thinking about this as we were talking about Brandon Miller. Do you remember at the draft or around the draft when a very prominent reporter who has a show with a sports book tweeted out that the Charlotte Hornets were giving consideration to Scoot Henderson. Here's the thing. Yeah. Charlotte was always going to take Brandon Miller. Yeah. Brandon Miller was their guy. He was their guy. They were always going to take him. Just interesting how that stuff plays out. It's interesting.
Well, and look, I think the purpose of what we did today is great because the three players we focused on and a couple of teams that we focused on in this session were all not discussed much the first half of the season. Clippers, Cavs, specifically Kawhi, Donovan Mitchell, and now Brandon Miller, where this was like two guys is all we talked about, all we mentioned all year for this rookie stuff. Now he deserves to get the love he's getting because of the way he's playing. If you're not watching him and there's no reason to watch Charlotte, just might want to, hey, pull up a highlight video. You could probably find a 9-minute highlight clip of Brandon Miller online. Just take a look at him if you're a hoop junkie and you haven't watched Charlotte and look at this guy's evolution as a player from day one and what he looked like, that first month in the league to what he looks like now. Because this looks like a super accomplished elite level wing in the making. Like that's what he looks like. And you need those guys to have a chance to contend in this league. And Brandon Miller looks like he's got a chance to get there based on what he is doing right now offensively and how comfortable he's getting with what his ceiling is every night.